we come to item 14 and to Pam's update of emerging issues. Over to you, Pam.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. A few things I probably want to go over this afternoon. Possibly start off with just a little bit of feedback, having been at the Health and Sports Committee this morning at the Scottish Parliament with colleagues from Greater Glasgow and Clyde, Jane Grant and Gordon James from the Golden Jubilee. We, I think, had a fairly thorough session with lots of good and appropriate questions relating to performance, relating to cost of living crisis, inflation, how that's affecting our energy, our estate, and in terms of the bills, and also how that kind of cost of living crisis is affecting our patients and our the people that work with through social care, as well as how we support our staff from a welfare perspective. Other areas covered were our escalation status, which included the areas we were de-escalated for, governance, culture and leadership, and quite a focus as well on mental health, and I was able to report on CAMHS and psychological therapies in that space. Obviously, our arrangements around finances also came under some scrutiny, but there was really a range of questions. So that, if you wish to, is possible to be watched. So as board members, if you wish to, I will probably watch it painfully, but it will be there uploaded later for you to take a look at. But hopefully I covered things in the best way that I could. Other emerging issues that I want to talk about, I suppose, one is the maternity business case and the situation with maternity. We had hoped to bring the maternity business case to this meeting, but we felt that the diligence still required to be completed in a little bit more depth than we were able to do within the timescales allowed to us if we were to aim for this board meeting. So that due process is being set out with Catherine leading, and we will be seeking to bring that business case to the next board meeting in May. In the meantime, that hasn't stopped us having some release of funding to get on with the changes that need to happen to improve our services, and doesn't stop any of the work that indeed Catherine and our team are doing locally and alongside Grampian in terms of how we build resilience in the north around maternity services. So you'll hear more about that at the next board meeting, and indeed probably at sessions that we have in between. But the key thing there was that we wanted to keep moving, but we definitely wanted to make sure that this business case is right and takes us to the right place for the future. So I hope that's appreciated. I felt it would also be really important just to say something about the care home situation, because clearly with the kind of experience we've had to date and the kind of loss of placements within the system over the last year, that has caused anxiety first and foremost for our communities in terms of what it might mean for them and might mean for their families, and also within our system of health and care, which is under extreme pressure. So I think it's important to say that we recognise that this is a challenge that, as a partnership with the Highland Council, who own the kind of legal responsibility around this in terms of duty around the delivery of care, but us in terms of the operating of that integrated model. We will continue to work together to try and set a path that sets out a good strategic way forward that's sustainable, and it's sustainability, as it is with all our services, that is key here. We absolutely will require provision, nursing home provision, but we are certainly at a point in time where we have to think differently and to understand better what the next iteration of that is. And hopefully, as we work with communities, and I do think we probably need to look a little bit again at our communication and engagement with communities in relation to this, and make sure that we are keeping them fully informed and fully engaged as we try and work through what is a very tricky process of change, but no doubt one that we have to find a solution to. Moving on to general performance and just how the system is, I think it's fair to say that the pressures continue. We've had some moments of really positive experiences for our staff and improved performance in days when it has clearly been really pressured again, and everything that comes out of that. So we continue to try and rebalance things and to bring our scheduled care programme forward in a way that will take us in the right direction, whilst ensuring that our whole system approach to unscheduled care is effective. So moving just to a few headlines that you'll be very aware of. Obviously, we had an open session for MSPs and elected members and press on Friday at the National Treatment Centre, and Debs will talk more about that later, I think in the next item. But that seems to have gone very well and been very well received by those who were able to attend, and certainly everybody was very impressed. The building is, as you saw yourselves, is really something else, and a state-of-the-art facility, and just fantastic for us in the Highlands and for others that will benefit from it. We also, Boyd and myself, attended up the top north of Skye last week to Staffin, to the health centre that was created there with the local community trust. Again, an excellent facility for the future, and one that will, I was asked, you know, how are we going to staff it? The idea is not to have permanent staff sitting in a health centre. It's to have a facility that staff can go and use when they are responding to that community and their needs where it's appropriate to do so. And that will vary depending on need at any given time, but it's great to have a facility on that. And Isabel MacDonald, who was a district nurse and midwife there previously and is now retired, she did the official opening and was delighted to do so. And we also had some of our counterparts, so lots of connections and people who had worked in that area alongside our new team. And it was a lovely event, and just great to see that within one of our very remote communities. In terms of another event that I was at, it was the cross-check event for the Caithness redesign. That was 2-3 weeks ago. And again, the teams there presented their ideas and plans for the future to a panel and then to a wider audience. And we had a good debate about the kind of content of those plans and perhaps where there's more work needed, but no doubt the ambition of the team and the ambition of the local community to have a really good, sustainable health and social care system in that area is tangible when you're in the room, and very well supported. But the devil's in the detail, and we have a lot of work to do to support the team to get to the right place. But that was a really positive and well-attended event, and I understand that their community engagement over the coming weeks will be significant as they go to community events in order to be available to speak to the community, which I think is excellent and really good practice. We also, what else did I want to talk about? Caithness staff and NTC, covered that one. And of course, we had our session last week in terms of our Pathfinder for the self-assessment for the blueprint. I think, as others were saying, it was an excellent opportunity for us to reflect on where we're at, and a great point to pause given the changes that are happening as we speak in terms of Boyd moving on to chapters new, and Sarah coming in as the new chair. So those are probably the main things that I wanted to mention this morning. I hope I've covered those things, but obviously, just to put on record while I'm speaking, I just want to convey again my thanks to you, Boyd, for the support as you've been as a chair, and I'm sure we'll talk more about that. Thank you. You're on mute.
Thanks, Pam. Must have been a long morning for you. You're still referring to it as morning. Any questions for Pam? On any of the items that she's spoken about? I believe, Pam, from our brief conversation, that there was a bit of a focus on culture this morning at the Health and Sport Committee, and sort of a reminder that we are always going to be associated with that topic, and that we have to keep on addressing it, I suspect.
Yes, certainly I was able to set out all the work that we've done, and indeed also the work that we've done in relation to the Sturrock report of 2018. It was raised with me that, you know, there was still a large report there to be responding to, but and I did try to clarify we were still talking about the Sturrock report, which is obviously really important to us. We've taken all the actions around that, but I was trying to set the scene for where we are now and where we are today, and the kind of infrastructure we have in place, and our need to look forward, and our need to focus on creating that wider positive environment for our staff and patients. So hopefully I contextualised that reasonably well. I'm always worried when we kind of fall back on individual items that are now, you know, 4 years old, 5, 6 years. What were we in 2023? 5 years old, and whilst very relevant, and we should never forget, we are in a position now where we're trying to look forward with absolutely creating the right environment for staff at the centre of what we do.
Any contributions? Any questions? Pam? Anne?
Good to hear, Pam, that we've had some of the revenue to move ahead with some of the maternity improvements. I just wondered if Alan or Catherine could comment on whether we've managed to address the issues around decant and how the improvements will take place in Rigmore, which I think were still a risk at last FRP.
Yeah, I'm happy to come in on that, and obviously Alan may wish to come in terms of the actual building and the estate, but we've been working very, very closely with the clinical team, and on the whole, I think we are we have a plan. There's additional physical space that's been identified very close to the maternity unit that allows us to start to move the squares around on the chessboard, if I can describe it as that, to facilitate a safe decant. The majority of colleagues in the department, the clinical colleagues, have been involved in that, and indeed last week we had a visit from Linda de Castica and her team to the unit, and the midwifery leadership within the department that was taking Linda and her team round were explaining exactly which part will be decanted to where and exactly how that would work. So I believe that we do have a decant plan that will work and is also manageable in terms of our estates colleagues, but I'll let Alan come in on that.
Thanks, Catherine. And just, yeah, as far as I'm aware now, we've got an agreed plan. I think it's over about 9 stages, so it's going to be quite a piece of work. And I think it'll take us probably two years to complete the works from start to finish. But we're starting now to put the works out for pricing and the different packages. So we hope to hit the ground running in May. We're starting this as soon as we can. But everything I've seen back now seems to be full agreement on how we're going to manage it going forward, where people are going to be located and where people will be temporarily located whilst we do the work. and we're hoping to get it off to a good start. We're trying to pick out an area that we can do to let people see, you know, what disruption it will be, but the benefits at the end of it when it's done.
Yeah, probably worth just of mention as well that with the funding and support that we've had approved, I think the recruitment to consultants, where we had 2 vacancies, we were able to take 3 last week, which I'm sure will be a boost for the team and really important. I think it's fair to say that from the conversation that happened last week when the visit happened and when subsequent conversations I've had, there is still a nervousness around the network model and what that translates into. So we need to continue to work and engage and ensure that that's shaped in the most appropriate and positive way to meet the right outcomes for our population in the north. And that resilience, I have to say, in that networked arrangement and working with National Education Scotland is not only going to be in the context of maternity. We are looking at the wider workforce requirements and the best way to strengthen the north by not letting board administrative boundaries become a block to being able to get the right workforce across the patch. I had some very positive feedback as well from Linda de Casticar about some of the feedback she'd had on our Argyll and Bute model and the relationship with the Glasgow clinicians, and that being cited as a very smooth and positive pathway. So that's important to note because sometimes we don't talk enough about what happens elsewhere. Thank you.
I think we have to remember too that it's not just Rigmore, it's other parts of our service and maternity service as well. And we've had a reminder of that this week from the chat in Caithness, asking us to look again at the model that was adopted in 2016. And that's something I'm sure that will be being considered by the new chair and colleagues in the coming months. The other thing, Pam, was the publicity that's been given in the press from a certain politician about the need for a new Rigmore, and it's something that we've been conscious of ourselves, and there's been internal discussions about that. I wonder if you and Alan could bring us up to speed on how we progress that.
I suppose we are very much at that discussion stage in terms of what does that look like for the future. We recognise the age of Rigmore and the restrictions of Rigmore as it stands from when it was built and how it was configured, if you were to compare it to what you would have today. However, it starts first with the model care, starts with you know, what is it we're going to deliver, and what is it that needs to be hospital based, and what is it that doesn't need to be hospital based. So I think, you know, there's a very systematic process to work through here that starts first with people, need, and then shape. And then from there, what is the infrastructure that needs to be in place to be, you know, fit for the future and a modern facility as part of that, as well as the kind of digital transformation that needs to be considered alongside that. And I know we're already on a journey in the acute sector with digital, so we can build on that strength. But I think that we need a kind of systematic approach to this, and Alan and I have definitely been discussing that, and we've been mindful of that in the context of the capacity to be able to take that forward. So it's on our radar. It is a live discussion, and definitely one that we should be interested in. I don't know if Alan, if you want to add anything.
Yeah, just obviously we're well aware of the the building itself and some of the areas of the poor quality. So it's more about making sure that the new model that we go to is going to see us for the sustainable for the future. So I suppose on the back of the work that we're doing just now in regards to Lochaber, Caithness, we've just done Skye, done Aviemore, the NTC, we should have a better baseline of what services are going to be needed on a new Rigmore. And that's the bit we'll need to start working on, as well as any capital that we're spending. So for instance, we need to look at the maternity. We're spending quite a lot of money there. You know, if we're then refurbishing Rigmore, how does that fit in to regards to that? We know it's not suitable for the longer term. So what service can go in there to make sure that we're able to spend our money wisely in that? So it's a big piece of work. But as Pam says, we've had a chat about it, and we'll start piecing it together along with Catherine and Boyd and clinical colleagues. But we've got to start somewhere. So hopefully we can get moving on once NTC's finished and we get further on in regards to Lochaber and Caithness.
Yeah, I think it's a really important piece, but I wouldn't want to miss out some of the other important areas as well, such as where we're at with primary care in Inverness in the surrounding area, and some of the challenges that are there with the building and the capacity, and therefore the shape of primary care premises, perhaps being challenged at times, particularly in certain areas where the building works are you know, there's really quite a significant expansion in housing. So, you know, the Rigmore is really important to us, our main acute hospital, but there's a whole wider estate there that needs to be considered as well and prioritised. So we are thinking thoughtful about that as well.
Any further matters for Pam? If not, we can move on to item 15, slightly early, to the National Treatment Centre and an update on progress from Debs.
Thanks very much, Chair. The paper is pretty much self-explanatory. I won't go through it in detail because things have changed rapidly from the point of writing the report a week ago to where we are now. There's a slight typo on page 2 of page 6, which is 1, 2, 3, the third paragraph down. So at time of writing, we were 88% of the total number of staff being recruited. It should have been 90%. Since writing the report, there's been quite a lot of activity, not least of which our theatres have now been commissioned. We're just waiting for the final sign-off, which is great. The building will be handed over to us today, and I'm confident that we'll be opening and receiving our first patients on the 17th of April. And that's pretty much what I need to report. As Pam said, we started the visit programme with yourselves on Tuesday of last week, and then MSPs and elected members from the council. We have our public visits on the 1st and 2nd, and subject to final confirmation, we'll be having staff and stakeholder visits on Wednesday the 5th. I'm happy to take questions.
Those of us who visited the facility last week were mightily impressed, Debs, with what you've achieved there. That's excellent, and also to congratulate you on getting to 90%. In fact, probably getting past 90% now in recruitment terms.
Thank you.
Questions for Debs on the update she's provided? Sarah.
Thank you, Boyd. It wasn't a question, it was just a comment to add to what Boyd has said. I mean, the building itself is really something, and as well as, you know, being obviously fit for purpose and more fit for purpose, just such a nice place to be in and the surrounding area. But actually what I wanted to comment on as well, and something that really impressed me, was the use of new technology in the building. And, you know, we talk a lot about using digital and using technology, and, you know, absolutely it doesn't replace people, it supports people to work more effectively, more efficiently. And I just wanted to comment on that because, you know, even things that seem so common sense, I just thought that it really kind of blew my mind. You know, there were things with sort of the key access and control and stuff to do with ventilation to reduce infections, and all those little innovations, I think, was such a great living example of how, as we move forward, we can really use pieces of technology to make our work better. And, you know, and absolutely, we're not talking about replacing people. We're talking about supporting people so that they can focus on the stuff that really matters. And I just wanted to comment on that because it's the sort of thing that with this a beautiful, amazing big building, sometimes you forget about the little details, and they really, really knocked my socks off, actually. So that was great. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Pam.
Maybe let Alex go next and I'll come in after if that's okay. Thanks.
Yeah, sure. Alex.
Yeah, thanks. No, just to reiterate what Sarah said, Graham and I got taken up to the plant room. Alan and Eric took us up to the plant room. It was amazing. It really was the best plant room I've seen for a long, long time. But as I said to both Alan and Eric, you've now set the standard, boys. This is it. So anything from beyond here, we can't go backwards. We've got to go forwards. But it was a great job, and well done to all concerned.
Thanks, Alex. Pam.
Yeah, just like to clarify, the plant room didn't have that effect on me, but that's okay. Each to their own. I think what has impressed me hugely is just the team and the team's attitude and approach and drive to get this right. And I think we really need to acknowledge all the work that's gone in and around that, and not just the immediate team. I think, you know, there's a huge interdependency with the teams over in Raigmore as well, and you know, they have had to tolerate a whole lot of changes and a whole lot of uncertainty, and have done so really, really well. And you know, so I think, you know, we need to kind of thank and pay tribute to the leadership in this right across the system and getting this here. But probably to come back to Debs and the fact that, you know, she has led on this, and it has been, you know, really challenging at times, but it's been exemplary, and the work that they've done around the people plan, around the mobilisation and transfer plan. Yeah, I probably got that wrong. But these plans have been, you know, adopted nationally as good practice, and how they should be looking at the other national treatment centres as they come online across the country. So I think, you know, we've done a great job locally, and we've contributed nationally, and you know, the kind of to deliver what we've delivered within the budget that's been delivered and in the timescale it has in the wake of a pandemic I think it's phenomenal, and I think we can't underplay just how important that is. And I probably do want to pay Deb's tribute in this meeting, because I've just realised that this will be her last board meeting, I think, because Debs is retiring young. Sorry, she's leaving. No, she's taking retirement next month. Now, Debs will be coming back a couple of days a week to see us through to ensure the transition is smooth, and to support Catherine in getting that all well oiled and running well. But I think it's just really important to acknowledge the contribution and leadership from Debs in this board meeting. So I hope that's okay, Boyd.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Not just in the NTC, but also with the hospitals that opened earlier in Aviemore and in Broadford, and they are such good provisions for the people of the respective areas. And they both, I think, I'm right in thinking that both have received awards in successive years. So congratulations on that as well, Debs, and thank you for your leadership of the team that have brought this facility to the point where it's about to become operational. And that was I'm sure, a very massive challenge for all concerned, and particularly given the circumstances of the pandemic, and then all the consequent shortages of materials and costs, inflation of costs that occurred. So I would entirely endorse what Pam has said.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. We can now move on to item 16, which is our last major item, the governance committees, the assurance reports, starting with clinical governance. We have 2 minutes of clinical governance in our papers, the 12th of January and the 2nd of March. Unfortunately, Alistair is not with us today, but I believe Boyd is going to speak to these.
Thanks, Chair, and sorry that Alistair can't be here. So Alistair has become the new Chair of Clinical Governance Committee, and we have, as a result of that change, looked to refresh the work plan and to make some changes in how we seek reports from the feeder groups that feed up into clinical governance. We have set out how we would like things to develop in 2023, and I'm looking forward very much to carrying that for improvement work with us and to report back as we go along. We're also looking to obtain assurance where we can via evidence, and are going to work to strengthen that. It exists, but we would like to do more. In amongst the papers and issues raised in the latest clinical governance, there's no particular escalation other than to mention that we've had an audiology report that we submitted to Scottish Government, and in this year we'll look to strengthen our audiology services in line with findings that have brought about a national review of audiology services in Scotland, and I've reported to clinical governance on that. And we've also made some mention of falls and of the prioritisation of falls prevention work that will need to happen in board on an ongoing basis. Has been already, but there's always more to do. So I think those are the main highlights that I'd like to touch on. Happy to take any questions if there are any just now, or pass on to the next. Thanks.
Thanks, Boyd. Are there any questions about the clinical governance minutes and items? Don't see any, so we'll move on to the FRP committee, the draft of the meeting of the 3rd of March. Alex. You're muted, Alex.
That better? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, so sticky button, as I said, we've had this problem before. Yeah, we were going to take the maternity business case paper, but decided we would defer that because it wasn't quite ready, and Pam touched on that earlier on about what we're now doing. So it'll be May when we take that. We got the report on the digital stuff. Ian Ross gave a good report on where we were with that. The finance stuff, as we say, we know it's a challenge. But the team's done very well in getting to where we've got to. We didn't get the 16 million, but getting the 20 million actually, I think, is a tribute to what we've done in the board area. So other than that, it was a relatively straightforward meeting. So minutes are there. If there's any questions, happy to help.
Any questions for Alex? Don't see any hands going up. So move to audit committee, and we have 2 minutes. The agreed minute of 7th February and the draft of 7th March. Gaynor.
Thank you. So yes, we've had our 2 meetings. The February meeting was a special meeting to try to catch up on some of the management actions. On our March meeting, we were joined by our new external auditors, Audit Scotland, which was really nice, and they seemed very proactive in terms of being able to bring some training to the to the members of the committee as well, which I think will be really helpful. So those are scheduled into our work plan going forward, which committee's already seen today. I think only really one main request, and Pam took this to the Executive Directors Group, and that's to make sure that we get information to our internal auditors and also to Health and support to Health around the management actions in a timely fashion going forward. And I think we'll clear up hopefully most of them at the next audit meeting, along with hoping to get an approval for our coming audit plan for this year. Thank you.
Thanks, Gaynor. And you've made provision for an extra meeting, I think, as well in the schedule of meetings.
We have, yes. So that has now been rescheduled for before we sign the management accounts in June, in order that we can make sure that we get all of our internal audit work done and it's completed before we present the internal audit report alongside the management accounts. So yeah.
Thanks, Gaynor. Any questions on audit? Okay, move on to staff governance, committee meeting of the 8th of March. Sarah.
Thanks, Boyd. So some of what we talked about at that meeting has been covered today with regards to whistleblowing report. Just a couple of things I wanted to draw people's attention to. We heard about some areas of really good practice. So we had a spotlight session with Alan and colleagues from the estates team, and that was a really good example of where Alan has taken with his colleagues a different approach to various things to do with the staff governance standards, including training and PDPs and stuff. So that was a really good discussion to hear. Also of importance, we talked about the annual health and safety review. Obviously, health and safety for everybody, our staff, our visitors, our patients is our top priority. And that was a really interesting discussion, lots of cross-cutting actions for us to take away. And again, some areas of really good practice and some areas for improvement. And the last thing I just want to draw out was the discussions around the update on the people and culture governance. Obviously, that is still evolving. There is still discussions taking place, but that was interesting. And I think that shift towards kind of reviewing where we've been on that journey, but looking forward. So we're at a bit of a turning point with that as well. But happy to take any questions.
Anybody have any questions for Sarah on staff governance? To move on then to Katrina and to the draft minute of the Area Clinical Forum of the 9th of March.
Thanks, Boyd. Yeah, we had a good presentation from Jane Gill from who's a transformation manager, discussing the annual delivery plan and encouraging the various groups to try and liaise with her or her team so that there's a link person in her team to try and link with the committees with regards to trying to help with general transformation and ideas, suggestions, etc. So hopefully we'll see some ideas and links formed, certainly between her department and the groups over the coming months. On the back of the meeting, I have since met with Fiona Davis with regards to the fact that some of the committees, we've got some membership gaps in quite a few of the committees, and Argyll and Bute clinicians tend to be less represented in these committees. So I've met with Fiona to try and discuss how we can try and redress that balance. And we've put out a call to the chairs of the committees to ask if they're needing assistance or if they've got any ideas about or people that might be suitable or willing to be part of everything. So we're trying to take that forward at this stage as well. So yeah, really that's everything else is in the minutes there, but it was really good that we actually had minutes from the NMAP committee. I think that's worth noticing. They haven't met for some time, and as our biggest staff group, it was really good to see that they'd met again, and we're looking forward to their contribution being greater going forward again. So that's good news.
Thank you, Katrina. Does anybody have any questions about the ACF from? If not, we can move to the IJB, their Grand Butte IJB meeting of the 25th of January. Sarah.
Thanks. It's always a little bit out of kilter with the IGB. We've got our next one tomorrow. But I suppose just to draw your attention to something I think I've raised previously, but that was the work that's been done to implement a directions policy. So this is not new legislation. This is legislation that already exists, but we were tasked following an audit report to firm up our arrangements regarding issuing and recording directions that we issue to our partners, NHS Highland and our Highland Board Council. So that was approved at the last IJB. I don't think there's anything else in particular that I wanted to raise.
Thanks, Sarah. Any points for Sarah? Finally, Highland Health and Social Care Committee, Jerry, to speak.
Thank you, Boyd. Yeah, we had a very full agenda just over a week or so ago. We had to reschedule a meeting to the 15th, but we had a really good meeting. We received a report on the services delegated from NHS Highland to Highland Council in relation to children and young people, which was really good to receive that report, and that picked up a few areas. Catherine already mentioned one of the key areas in there in terms of the NDAS service, where I think we really just need to keep a very careful eye on that, but there seems to be a very good improvement plan in place. We, as I've said a couple of times this morning, and we received an excellent report from the MARI, the third sector interface into the community mental health and wellbeing, which tied up very nicely, I think, with the mental health assurance report, which we received from Arlene, and we look forward to it. The next meeting, we were going to have a discussion about the mental health strategy. We received within Pam's chief officer report, she gave us an update on dental services, and obviously there's a very worrying situation there, and the committee asked for a fuller update to the next committee meeting at the end of April, and the committee also asked that I raise that as a matter of escalation to the board, probably just in terms of awareness at the moment. We'll see what comes out of the report to the committee in at the end of April, but I think it's something that probably needs to go into our board agenda at some point, or a fuller report, just in terms of when we get a fuller understanding of the position in relation to dental services. So thank you, Boyd.
Thanks, Jerry. Any points for Jerry? See any hands up, so we're happy to receive these reports and take them as assurance. Thank you. We'll come to AOCB, and I want just to say a few words here on my own behalf, as this is my last meeting as chair of the board before stepping down on Friday. I wish to take this opportunity to thank all members of the board for the staunch and unwavering support you have given me during the past 4 years. I particularly wish to acknowledge the great debt of gratitude I owe to Anne as vice chair and to Pam, our chief executive, who have provided invaluable assistance and advice and made my job so much more manageable and rewarding. I also want to put on record my appreciation of the wonderful staff of this organisation, who went way above and beyond in maintaining services to the people of the Highlands and Islands during the unimaginably challenging days of the pandemic, and to continue to give of their best in the face of unrelenting pressures. Whether you be in the most acute situations of frontline services or in the vital background support services, your dedication, steadfastness, empathy, and expertise is readily apparent and greatly appreciated. It has been my privilege and honour to chair an organisation so firmly focused on delivering the very best of health and social care services to the citizens of Argyll and Bute and of the North Highlands. No body of human beings will get everything right all the time, but we strive to do that to the maximum extent possible. And I know from formal and informal feedback that we achieve high standards of care and compassion on a regular basis. And in fact, only this morning, I received another example of that. As I reflect on these past 4 years, I take pride in what we have managed to do together. It truly has been a team effort, built on collaboration with partners and communities. Our many achievements include responding positively and comprehensively to the findings of the Sturrock report, introduction of the Guardian Service and of the Employee Assistance Programme, institution and implementation of the healing process, dealing successfully with the onset of the pandemic and minimising its impact, tackling the financial deficit and returning to balance in a 3-year timeframe, lifting of the Section 22 status by the Parliament's Public Audit Committee, revamping the governance structures and processes of the organisation, de-escalation from level 4 to level 3, and then from level 3 to level 2 on the Scottish Government's ladder of escalation, production and adoption of a long-term board strategy, Together We Care, creation of a new board website, opening of 2 new hospitals in Aviemore and Broadford, and a new health centre in Staffin, completion of the National Treatment Centre, new arrangements for primary care services in Mull and Dunoon, approval of initial agreements for the Caithness and Lochaber redesign programmes, national recognition for several individuals and for building designs, being a pathfinder in self-evaluation for the revised blueprint for good governance, and a personal one, if I may, approval of a bilingual logo for the board. Much remains to be done, and we face many challenges going forward, but we should be encouraged by what we have achieved working collaboratively and collectively. Sarah has contributed substantially to our progress as a board, and I am confident that she will build on the foundations that have been laid and will lead the board onwards and upwards in the next 4 years. Thank you. And Sarah.
Oh, what can I say, Boyd? How can I follow that? You always know exactly what to say. And I was going to try and get in before you there, but I wasn't quick enough. So you've said some really lovely things about me. And I would just say I've had an excellent teacher. So thank you. That list that you read out there was something, and I think we forget just how much we have achieved. And you're right, there is more to be done, but it's amazing to look back at all those achievements. And you're right, collectively, collaboratively. So I just want to say something. I want to express here on behalf of myself, colleagues, and I'm sure so many others who would wish to thank you for your service to this board, to the organisation, and to the people of Argyll and Bute and Highland. So you've done a great recap and looked at the work that's been done. And it'll be no surprise that I'm thinking a lot about the future of NHS Highland and this board and the legacy that you leave. So at our recent board development day, our wonderful Vice Chair Anne rightly reminded us of the turbulent waters and the many storms that you've guided us through. You're a steadying hand on the tiller, I think she said. And I think it would be fair to say that you not only got us through those storms, but you really challenged and supported us to come out as a stronger, more effective, more cohesive board. You provided the clear, strong leadership that we needed without ever making us feel like our voices weren't just as valuable. And in fact, you worked really, really hard to make sure that all our voices were heard, that the voices of others were heard, even when that wasn't easy. And you've challenged us as a group time and time again to examine our own work, to reflect on our journey and to strive to improve. You've supported me and colleagues around the table in fulfilling our committee and governance responsibilities and through our own tough times that we've experienced, as tends to happen from time to time in life. And I'm sure that my colleagues would join me in giving a heartfelt thanks for your enduring kindness and your sage advice. What you showed us every day, in every meeting and every interaction, was that we, as critical friends, as leaders, as colleagues, can work through some really, really difficult stuff, and that we can scrutinise, we can challenge and we can support without ever compromising on our compassion and our dignity, our professionalism, our humility and our very humanness. And I think this is going to be the guiding principle that I hold central as I take up the mantle, and I feel really lucky to have had the opportunity to learn from you. So as you prepare to sail off into the sunset, know that you are leaving us with the tools to take on the future challenges and the changes that we know are coming, a clear direction to travel and evolve, a shared hope and ambition to serve better, and I think you touched on this, the good sense to know that the work will never be done. So to complete the maritime theme as inspired by Anne, calm waters never made a skilled sailor. So I'm sure you'll now be very skilled indeed as you head off most deservingly to your second attempt at retirement. Good luck with that. Don't join any more boards.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for these very, very generous and kind words, which are much appreciated. And you, as board members, have heard from the articulate way in which Sarah expressed herself, how ready she is to take on this role, how well suited she is for it, how well kitted she is for it. I have no intention of sailing through the Corrie Vrecken, Sarah. I'll keep to much calmer waters. Even I might even use a Calmac ferry if they're still running. But I just want to thank you all as colleagues, and to say that I'll miss you greatly from my daily life, but please feel free to get in touch at any time. And I also want to thank you for the generous gifts from last week and for participating in the events last week, and for those who weren't present but made contributions in a surprise video, which I really enjoyed watching and receiving. So thank you again, and I wish you all the very best. I'll be watching the future of the organisation with keen interest, knowing of the many challenges that lie ahead in various sectors. But I'm sure you are well equipped as a board to meet these challenges and to overcome them. So thank you again, and I think it's a case of over and out now. You have another meeting in May, incidentally, just to remind you. But for now, sláinte.